2, 1, and I'm back. This is Gamesieger, or should I say Kaiser Gamesieger von Habsburg, bringing you the possible appearances, weapons, abilities, types of Austro-Hungarian squads, and the history of the army, if they add them to Verdun. This is a part of my possible Verdun Nations series, and before I get started, I'd like to say I do not recommend watching this on Plays.tv, as you'll just be hearing my voice with nothing going on in the background. Plays.tv is kind of where I dump all my videos before I put them on YouTube, so you get a lot of experimental stuff and trials if you go over there. So if you want to see the complete video, head over to Gamesieger646 on YouTube, where you can watch it with gameplay and other stuff. Now, since there's a lot to cover, especially with a major nation like Austro-Hungary, I will split the Austro-Hungarian coverage into 2 or more parts. Maybe more, now that I think about it. With this one focusing on their weapons. Now, Verdun has not made any announcement to add Austro-Hungary or any other nations into Verdun, for that matter. But the other day, or it was actually a week ago, the other week, I made a video analyzing the pros and cons of adding new fronts. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend you go over there before watching this video. And if you like to stay on top of Verdun news, discussion, and other videos, and if you like my videos, please subscribe for more content like this. Now let's dive into this a little bit. First and foremost is the fun part. What weapons should be added with possible Austro-Hungarian squads? Firstly, the main Austro-Hungarian infantry rifle of the war was the Steyr-Mannlicher Gewehr M1895, or the M95 as I'll call it. This was a straight pull bolt action rifle, which basically means it is sort of like the Ross rifle, which is already in the game. The Canadians have it. It'll feature an end block clip similar to the Berthier rifles, but it should have the possibility of swapping out the mags mid-clip, unlike the Berthier rifles or the Kar 88. Now, this rifle will hold a uniquely fast rate of fire because of the straight pull bolt action rifle, which in short, it basically means you don't have to rotate it up and back. You just push the bolt forward and push it back. Now, historically, this did come with some drawbacks. It had a very thin barrel, it had ejection issues, but Verdun doesn't have any malfunctioning concerns. They don't have a malfunctioning mechanic, so unless they change that, this won't show up in the game. In terms of performance, the M95 will be similar to the Ross rifle, but using an end block clip instead of chargers, and will have much more clear sights. The Ross rifle sights, to me, I really don't like them. I think they suck. Historically, the M95 was successful, with a few minor drawbacks that, unless the devs, unless they add an ejection issue, will not see themselves in the game. And this will be the primary and most ubiquitous weapon in the Austro-Hungarian armament. It'll sort of be like the German Gewehr 98, the British Lee Enfield. You'll see it with almost every squad for their respective country. Now, similarly to the M95 will be the M95 Schützen, which basically means short or shortened, sort of the same meaning as Kurz. Now, this version of the M95 was intended for cavalry and is shorter. Thus, it'll be sort of the difference between the Kar 98 AZ and the Gewehr 98, which are both based upon the same gun model. The M95 rifle will be more accurate and have greater stopping power, but the Schützen will be shorter and be easier to aim. This carbine will probably be used by NCOs, grenadiers, or possible commando squads. And when I say commandos, I don't mean people who don't wear underwear commandos, but I mean Imperial Yacht Commandos. They're the elite corps of the Austro-Hungarian army. They're most known for defeating the Italian army at Caporetto in 1917. Other infantry weapons will include the Gewehr 88, or the Kommissionsgewehr, which is already in the game. It's a German rifle. It was lend-lease to the Austro-Hungarians because the Austro-Hungarians, the Imperial Army, had a massive shortage of rifles in the beginning of the war. But the Kar 88 variant of the Gewehr 88 will probably not be present with Austro-Hungarian squads, as very few of them were sent to the Austro-Hungarians. Another possible rifle is the Steyr Gewehr M1886, and the 88, which were made later, and also the 84, but might as well cover all of them while we're at it. They were the predecessor to the M95. They began as bolt-action repeater rifles firing from black powder cartridges, but the introduction of the French smokeless powder Label made all obsolete rifles obsolete. All bolt-action rifles obsolete. Of course, all obsolete rifles would be obsolete. Thus, the Austro-Hungarians, however, they refitted these weapons to an expensive process so they could shoot semi-smokeless powder, which is the next best thing to fully smokeless powder, which wasn't very common in the Empire, and that these rifles couldn't handle fully smokeless powder cartridges. But in the game, this probably have very little effect, and they should be used. They'll probably be used sort of like the Gewehr 88 in early tiers groups, early tier squad things, or as second line rifles. Now the next is the Steyr Schönauer rifle, which was made for Greece by Austro-Hungary. But because the war started before they sent all of them to Greece, the Austro-Hungarians had a small amount of them in their hands, which they used for commandos and stuff. So it may make an appearance, but don't count it. But I mean, seriously, Steyr on that basis, they should add it just because of its name, as a sick name. If they do add it, it'll probably be similar to the Kar 98 AZ. Now, in terms of machine guns, the Salvatore Dormus M1893 and the, I'm going to screw this up just because so many numbers, Schwarzläuse MG0712 will probably be the dominant automatic weapons of the possible Austro-Hungarian squads. Now, the Salvatore Dormus was a cycle-fed machine gun that fired from 20 to 30 round boxed magazines from the top. This cycle action allowed the operator to, cycle the rate of fire between 170 to 250 rounds per minute, which isn't all that fast for a machine gun even back then. And these machine guns were were replaced by the more modern Schwarzläuse MG0712, but the shortages of the Schwarzläuse forced many of the Salvatore Dormuses into service. But as the number of the Schwarzläuses increased, the number of Salvatore Dormuses decreased. Speaking of the Schwarzläuse will be very similar to the MG08. It was water-cooled, belt-fed, so one of them actually have a belt, which will be very cool. But other than that, it'll basically be a German MG08 with a different aesthetic look. Now, I think they should add the older one, the Salvatore Dormus, because if they did add like a mechanic where you could cycle the rate of fire, I think that'd be kind of unique, because I feel like in Verdun a lot of the guns aren't unique. I mean, this is concerning machine guns, and machine guns they all kind of act the same when you mount them. This is especially true for rifles. They're all kind of the same. But let's move on from that, because I'll talk about that later in another video. Now, pistols for Austro-Hungarian squads would probably be the Ross-Steyr M1907, the Ross-and-Grasser M1898, and possibly the Steyr M1912 or the Grasser M1870. Now, the first one, the Ross-Steyr M1907, was the official Austro-Hungarian sidearm. And I personally, I don't know, but I think it would be similar to the Ruby or the Webley self-loading pistol, as it was automatic and it was the first non-revolver sidearm adopted by a major army. Now, the Ross and Grasser M1898, their names are all very similar, so I know it's hard to follow up, but I'll add a picture over this. Was a double-action revolver, meaning it was practically semi-automatic. Double action is basically single shot for revolvers. And it'll serve a similar role to the Webley service revolver for the British, which is already in the game. The Steyr M1912 will only be seen in limited numbers with units like the Yacht Commandos, and will be very similar to the Colt M1911. And the Grasser M1870 was old and now obsolete. It was single action, but it was liked by certain Austro-Hungarian Sturmtruppen and Yacht Commandos, as it had very powerful stopping power. And I think it'll be very similar to the Reichs revolver. You both load them very slowly by like using like the little stick and pushing it out and then putting a shell in one at a time. So I think it'll be fun to play with. I don't think it'll be the best pistol. I mean, the Reichs revolver certainly has its strengths, but I wouldn't consider it I wouldn't consider it the best revolver. A lot of people have different opinions, though. Now, not much else can be said about Austro-Hungarian infantry weaponry, but artillery and other weapons I'll cover in a video for squad abilities. And maybe the devs would add the Verdun hollow breech-loaded rifle to troll people, but this is kind of unlikely, because why would people use a breech-loaded rifle from the mid-1870s instead of a bolt-action rifle from the 1900s? Now, that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next video, which will cover squad roles, and unit appearances. Please subscribe if you like videos like this. Drop a like and a comment down below. Thank you, and have a good day. Kaiser Gamesjäger.